G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review of a zombie film. This is from the UK, English language, released in the year 2010, directed by the Ford brothers, Howard J. Ford and Jonathan Ford, and this movie is the zombie film The Dead. And the story to The Dead is as follows. The spectacular vistas of Africa become the setting of unthinkable horror in The Dead, the haunting and highly anticipated zombie road movie from emerging talents Jonathan and Howard J. Ford. American Air Force engineer Lieutenant Brian Murphy is the sole survivor of a plane crash in the wilds of Africa. It was the last evacuation flight off the continent, which is besieged by the living dead. Now he must run the gauntlet across Africa to find another way out. Joining forces with local military man Sergeant Daniel Dembele, who is desperately searching for his missing son amongst the chaos, they must fight together if they are to survive the flesh-eating horrors of the bush. So what we have here, the continent of Africa has been completely besieged by the living dead. So chaos has reigned. And the last evacuation flight, taking the survivors off the continent into safety, has crashed. So the sole survivor of this crash is Lieutenant Air Force engineer Brian Murphy, who works for the American military. He is the sole survivor, and he comes to the conclusion that he is going to have to make his way across the gauntlet of Africa on foot in order to get to this army base that promises safety. So it's a very long way away, and he is desperately searching for a car or any means necessary to get there faster, because it is a very dangerous place that Africa has become, obviously because of the hordes of the living dead. So along the way he crosses paths with another survivor named Sergeant Daniel Dembele, who is serving in the local military, and his son has escaped the clutches of the zombies, and he believes that he has sought refuge at the same place that Brian Murphy wants to go to. So for that reason, both of them team up and they start to make their trek to the base, and meanwhile they are trying to fight off the hordes of these brain dead horrible zombies. So whether or not they achieve their goal, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that is as far as I'm going with my rundown. Now my thoughts on the film. Unfortunately, this is another movie to add to the list of being overhyped. While the movie did have some positives, I thought the negatives weighed it down considerably and prevented it from being a very good film. Now, I know a lot of people out there liked it. I'm not hating on films just because everyone else liked it. I am just giving my dead set honest opinion, and my honest opinion suggests that this movie was nowhere near as good as I was hoping it to be. Now, the things I liked about the movie, because thankfully there were things to like, more notably the cinematography. Now, I say it time and time again that Australia utilised their backdrops very well, and in this case, I found that it was very odd to make a zombie movie in Africa, but I was really glad that they did, because they utilised the harsh conditions of Africa, which made it seem like another villain. And it wasn't only the zombies that they were combating, it was also the harsh element of nature, because it's in the desert, very, very hot, water is scarce, so you could really feel the pain that they were feeling. And whenever a director does that, that is the sign of someone who really knows what he's doing behind camera. So for that, cinematography, it was a visually stunning film, and I really liked the approach that he went. Very, very sweaty, very dirty, and there was a feeling of isolation as well. There were only two main characters. For 98% of the film, these two main characters are the only survivors in the whole continent. So there was a whole level of claustrophobia. Although it was out in the open, these two, their world was each other, because no one else had survived. Well, they didn't think anyone else had survived, sorry. So for that reason, it was kind of like us versus them mentality. And for that, once again, another psychological element put into the film. Also, a political element as well, which I found quite surprising that no one else picked up on it. I actually felt that this was showing how things are really in Africa. There were some countries in Africa that, slaughters happen every single day. So I actually feel that this is a political message put behind a horror film. So if you want to look under the surface, I actually feel that I'm not the only one who got that sort of message. I also love the fact that it was a chillingly made film. Now, these zombies were so many of them, and the fact that the two main characters were no longer surprised by seeing them was really chilling, because if it comes to the point where this is normal, just seeing zombies walking around is normality. It's a very scary world that they're living in. So once again, another very subtle approach, which I actually found very, very interesting. So the movie is a lot more than it seems. I actually felt that there was a little bit of depth to it. Soundtrack was good. It was limited, which I actually thought was good. Sometimes I feel that horror films can overdo the soundtrack, but not the case in this film. And also the gore. Gore was very, very satisfactory for all gore hounds. You're expecting a gore fest for a zombie film, and you won't be disappointed by this. There were some scenes that I actually really liked, and I actually thought the gore effects were very realistic. Also, once again, another thing to like about it, I thought the lead actors did a good job, although they didn't have much depth. I thought that they did a realistic job at reacting to the situation that they were facing. Unfortunately, all those positives should have made it a very good film, but unfortunately, this movie suffers from the continuity and the build-up. Well, while the build-up, I feel that it was decent, there was no continuity, there was not very good pacing, and I felt that the movie really didn't go anywhere, and it was down to boredom. About a quarter of the way in, I actually thought that this movie was dragging. Now, the problem I have is a problem that a lot of people are going to be angry about, and that is the George A. Romero style of zombie. Now, yes, I really like the fact that the director has respected George A. Romero's sort of rules on zombies, that they're very, very slow and brain dead, but for this reason, I actually felt that the movie would have benefited from zombies from Dawn of the Dead remake. The reason I say that is, yes, there were so many zombies, but they weren't intimidating enough because they were so slow. And it just seems like if you go into a power walk, you would have been able to outrun them. So the level of fear and the level of realism when the zombies catch their prey, it just wasn't there, and I actually felt that it was more boring than terrifying. I felt that the ending was very stupid. I thought he was running out of ideas. I really didn't like it, and it just felt that this guy had material for a short movie, but he has tried to drag it out to a feature film, which really, really didn't work, and it prevented it from being a great movie, which is disappointing because, as I said, there is a lot to like about the movie. So, as a result of the poor pacing, rather mild kind of zombies that weren't, terribly intimidating, I'm only going to give this film a 2.5 out of 5. I'm sure that this is going to surprise a lot of people, but each to their own. I'm not reviewing these films, as I said, just to cause a stir. I'm just reviewing them based on what I feel. So whether you like it or hate it, that's up to you. But 2.5 out of 5 for The Dead, I feel it's very overhyped, and I was bitterly disappointed by the end result because it did have grounds to become a classic sort of zombie film. So 2.5 out of 5. It's coming recommended for a rental, but just don't expect anything terribly amazing. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later. Bye.